Now, welcome along to this week's edition of the Clare Champion Sports Chat podcast. As we told you in last week's preview editions, loads to get through, so we decided to split this week up into big ball and small ball in parts 1 and part 2. We've Fergie Loughlin here with us for the small ball section, along with Peter O'Connell, and later on we'll have Rory Hickey on when we look back on football and some of the issues arising from the weekend. Loads to get through in terms of hurling. Obviously we've got Camogie to talk about as well, but we'll start, Fergie, I guess, with maybe the big game of the weekend, or maybe the big result of the weekend from a Clare hurling perspective, and it's not inter-county. We're obviously talking about the Harty Cup. What a win for St. Flannan's down in Nina against Templemore, and a massive opportunity obviously awaiting them now.
Yeah, a massive opportunity, and it's been a while since they've been in a Harty Cup final and have won one. So, and we've always known it. Go back 10 or 15 years ago, Flannan's were always a big stronghold in Harty Cup. There's always been great buzz around the county because of it. And now they're back there again. It's absolutely fantastic. I thought from the off, we kind of mentioned our commentary, Derek. After 5 minutes, we said this game is going to go down to the wire. The way both teams were shaped, both teams had their formations made up. There was going to be nothing given away too handy, and that's the way it worked out. I suppose, look, Templemore will probably go home. They got probably 2 very soft frees near the end. JD, unlike him, they were very, very scoreable. And they missed those. It could have been a different result then. But look at credit to Flannan's. I think once they got their heads in front, I thought they managed the game reasonably well. I still have little questions about the kind of their setup. The Peter Power playing on his own in the forward line. I know the mention about, we understand that he's not going to win every ball, and you sacrifice a man like that if you just work savagely hard on that. But at times in the game we were very, very lucky that if Templemore, I thought, were very, very slow and leaving probably the best hurler in the country at the moment. I think at under 17, 18 level, young Galvin King, Galvin Luce, if he had been picked up and if he had been closed down maybe earlier in the game, I think it could have been a different result. But that wasn't Flannan's fault. But you'd have to admire Flannan's. I thought there was great spirit, their work ethic. I mentioned Oisin O'Donnell in our commentary. I thought he was very, very good, and that rubbed off into an awful lot of players. We had a blow-star performance from a few of the Harty players, and they're young fellas and they're entitled to that, I suppose, a little bit. But Bugler and O'Grady will be looking to make sure that the Hakertys of this world, the Dermot Cahills, are at their very, very best in the Harty final. They need to be, and they're there and they have a great chance now.
Yeah, and they're taking on, Peter, a CBC Cork team that lost last year's final, and I think it was their first final actually since the very first Harty final. Just doing a bit of research on it today, so they'll be eager to make up for that. But Fergie said last week in the preview that he felt it was like the horse racing analogy that Flannan's, in terms of the Tulla game, would have come on for the run, and it's what kind of makes me confident for the Harty final, in that they played nowhere near the way they can. They had some very poor wides in the first maybe 10 minutes or thereabouts. Those players that he mentioned, the likes of Jim McCahill and Hegarty, were marked out of it, and the space that they operate in was crowded out. So there's probably another 15% that they can go again.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of a good team to maybe not quite reach their maximum. Some of their best players didn't have the impact in the semi-final that I suppose everyone thought they might have. And it's a great sign that others stepped up, and you'd have to definitely, as Fergie did, highlight King Galvin for that. He was involved in some crucial plays and got some great scores and that as well. But one ball is it's one thing getting great scores, but I think the real test of a player is, can they win a hard ball when the result is on the line with a few minutes left, and he seems to be able to do that. It really is a huge boost for Clare underage hurling to be playing in a Harty Cup final. I think it's the 100th Harty Cup final. Flannan's have such a record, such a great record in the competition. It has to bring these fellas on. It has, also probably will inspire a lot of younger hurlers at Flannan's first year, second years in other schools as well. Tulla are probably thinking, I know, okay, they were fairly well beaten, but they still competed in that quarter final for a good part of that game. So it definitely looks fairly good in terms of Clare underage hurling, that players are being developed. And I'd just be interested, Fergie, do you think will they stick with the same tactics for the final? Will they tweak it a small bit? Was there any bit of a noticeable change tactically from the quarter-final to the semi-final?
Well, there was from the quarter-final, Peter, because they went 15-15 with Tulla. I think they were backing themselves that maybe that a balance of maybe throughout each line, they were a little bit stronger, maybe 2 out of 3 in each line, and they were backing themselves to win those battles. Where previous to that, Flannans were kind of King Galvin was kind of designated to get loose and become a sweeper, and not alone become a sweeper, become attacking one as well, where he was allowed to go back up the field, he was allowed to come back and defend, and that. And I just have, look at, to play the game they play, it doesn't suit every team because you have to have the personnel to play it. And I'm just wondering, I think they got out of jail a little bit with Templemore, that Templemore weren't awful smart on the sideline with 15 minutes to go. I thought that they left the best player, Keane Galvin, with an acre in front of him, left him loose. The amount of ball he got onto, the scores he got from play, like, we spoke about missing a few scores in the first half, Derek. I think the 3 frees that Keane missed, like, there were probably 65, 70 yards. 2 were out, one at the left hand side, one at the right hand side. So they weren't give me's, like, they were very, very difficult compared to JD's frees near the end that he missed. That were very, very scoreable, very scoreable. But they allowed Flannans then to dictate that and dictate really the final 10 minutes of the game, and Flannans were able to manage it. I'd honestly be saying that a team that's a little bit smarter with the system Flannans play, and playing a one man from forward line, like a few of our puck outs as well broke down. I thought we went to Dara Healy, and I think it was right. Cian Broderick went to Dara Healy, but then Dara Healy went lateral from the 21 across the 21 to the corner back, and all of a sudden it allowed Templemore to push up. If you go short, I think your next rule has to be turn and either go with it forward or else give it that 70 or 80.
But not across.
Not across. Because I think it defeats the purpose of the short puck out in, because what it does, it allows the team that brings their corner forwards back out the field a little bit. They split their wing forward to go back into midfield. Their corner forward comes out and splits between 2 and 5 or 4 and 7. And all of a sudden then you pressure. If the pass is made here and then it goes across lateral across the 21 again, it allows them wing corner forwards to push up again and put pressure on the corner back. And it happened on 3 or 4 occasions. And I think they got 2 scores out of the 4 occasions it was turned over. But look, I was still delighted with Cian Broderick because we felt against Tulla that he should have gone to Dara Healy more often, and instead he pumped long ball into the Tulla half back line, and we were turned over quite a bit in that. So I was delighted to see him going to Dara Healy, but I think the route then is to be, when Dara Healy gets it, he has to come through the lines with it rather than go lateral. But look at these are only all small things. There's no better men than Brendan Bugler and Kevin O'Grady and co, I think, to really analyse the video and have a look at them little things, and they're simple things, but I think they can be sorted. But the other thing I found very interesting with Flannans is that when the game really, because it was in the balance, wasn't it? And when Flannans needed to get the score to go ahead, then they really managed the game very, very well. I thought, they slowed it down at times. I thought, the percentage balls that you might have gone for a score, they played it into the corners. They really managed the game very well, and I'd been very pleased with that aspect of it.
Yeah, there was going to be a massive build-up to that. Obviously, February 15th, we're told, is the date, so Valentine's plans might have to be worked around hurling, but it's
Gaelic grounds, is it?
Yeah, so not confirmed yet, but that's to be confirmed. But I think, in fairness, working Valentine's plans around the GA is not new to any of us three buckles, I'd say. No. So there won't be too much upset over that. Time is moving quickly on. I know we wanted to spend time on that because, as I say, it was the big result for Clare hurling the weekend. We were expecting Fergie Clare to beat Carlow. Did it comfortably in the end, and let's maybe move on from it in the sense that nobody probably learned anything from it. Okay, good to see Tony hitting form and a few of the guys coming in, the likes of Owen Quirk and these fellas putting down their mark. But we probably have to look forward to Wexford Park. Do you ever look forward to going to Wexford Park? What an absolute kind of Istanbul that is for Wexford down there. So
great spot. It's
going to be just another level, isn't it?
It is massive level, and I think Brian Lohan and co again will be wanting to see a massive game in their hands, because really Sunday was very, very poor. It wasn't Clare's fault. They're going to be what's in front of them, but Carlow Carlow are a very poor club team. An awful lot to dislike about what they were trying to do, and a little bit spirited at times, but their hurling was so poor. Yeah, look, it's what Brian Nolan will want to see. Will he give a spin again to Owen Quirk? Will he give a spin again to Ryan Taylor? Will he Aidan McCarthy, Stephen O'Halloran? I thought the two of them in the half back line were very, very good. I thought solid. I thought Pat O'Connor held down the centre reasonably well, but none of them really tested Derek. So to completely different game next Sunday. And I'm sure, I'm just thinking about this, I'm sure, the last 2 or 3 times that Clare and Wexford played under Davy Fitzgerald, it's kind of been a bit lacklustre, hasn't it? Parky Queeve, there was no of that what we see Davy from the sideline. A difficult position for him to be in. It's his native county, but he's a job to do in Wexford. And I think now he'll be saying, look, it's time now, no matter who it is, we have to take on the challenge, and we have to start it from the sideline. And I can see this being a massive game. And it's going to be a very difficult one for Clare. And it's going to be a really testing one, which we need to see. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to it. And I think, if Brian Lohan wants to find out anything about his squad now, he'll find it out on Sunday evening.
Yeah, and just following up on what Fergie was saying there, Peter, okay, I'd agree that the Parky Queeve game was a bit of a damn squib, but if you track where both teams have maybe gone since then, you could argue Wexford with the Leinster title within touch distance of an All-Ireland final, and perhaps Clare just regressing slightly. So maybe is it more competitive now? Clare were well ahead of Wexford that day down in Cork, and it was no great surprise that they won, but the home advantage, the subplots of the managers, all this thing boiling to what should be a really, really class game.
Yeah, I think we have to say that at the moment Wexford are ahead of Clare. They've won the Leinster Championship. Clare had a very poor Munster Championship last year. But I think this will be a real Brian Lohan will know a huge amount more on Sunday evening than he probably does at the moment in terms of how his players are going to react in an atmosphere like down at Wexford Park. There's going to be a big crowd. Wexford will be hugely motivated. In a lot of ways, I know the Carlow game was a bit of a non-event, but probably no harm in getting a bit of a run out and just, you'll still learn a bit from that game. Maybe not a huge amount, but no harm in getting that ahead of the Wexford game. Bit of a warm up. It's going to be very interesting to see some, where some, will they go again with Dave Fitzgerald in the half forward line? What's the thinking there, Fergie? It's presumably he wants a ball winner centre forward. Is it a PJ O'Connell type figure going back to the 90s, someone that put the hand up, Conor Clancy?
More of a Conor Clancy than a PJ O'Connell. But again, I go back to, it's a thing we've mentioned it before we actually saw the team that was being picked to play Carlow. It's David Fitzgerald is the 6-footer on the half forward line. Ian Galvin and David Reedy are not. So it's going to be very interesting because Wexford, we know how to play. They're going to play a sweeper. We know that they'll come from the back. Number 3 could end up in the kind of forward position with the ball in his hand. It's going to be off the shoulder stuff. And I do know that Wexford have trained absolutely over the last 4 months, has been absolutely savage. It has been, since Davy Fitzgerald has gone down there, I'm told by a source close to me down in Wexford that it has been the toughest year, both getting physically fit, but strong, tackling, everything. So this is going to be a massive. And we've seen them in the pre-competition, and we've seen them against Kilkenny, where even against Laois, they're finishing their games really, really strong. So, the fitness levels are very, very good. They're physically engaged. They have a running game. They can get balls into space. And this is going to be a real test for Brian Lohan.
And it's going to be interesting, Fergie. Will the direct game work against the sweeper?
No.
You have to probably vary it a bit.
No, and that's what Brian Lohan will want to find out, because a lot of teams are using, even if they're not using the sweeper, it's their 10 and 12 are going back a little deep for the puck outs. Their 2 midfielders are going back a little bit to cover the half back line. So there is a lot of that happening in the game. And the thing, if you do happen to go long, and you need to go long, is that you need to have ball winners.
You have to. It has to stick.
And the ball winner, to me, necessarily can't be in the centre, because that's where the sweeper will operate behind. So you'll be telling the man marker to break it in behind to get it onto the sweeper, or break it in front to get onto midfielder. It has to be on the wings. And that's with Ian Galvin, where we've a very dynamic Ian Galvin, we've very dynamic David Reedy. I like the way he was playing Reedy the last day, getting onto massive amount of ball. He was linking up very well with Tony Kelly in the middle of the field. McInerney was kind of, like we'd mentioned, was going to kind of play a sitting role in front of that half back line to give a little bit of cover and that. But against Carlow, he didn't really need to do it. He got a great point from the middle of the field as well, McInerney. But there was no really test of that team against Clare on the way. It'll be completely different on Sunday. This will be a real test for Brian Lohan and co to see where they're at, both fitness-wise, physical-wise, and hurling-wise. Because I think Wexford are probably ahead of the bunch across the board at the moment, in all aspects with the work they've done.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive game, no doubt about that. Reports from the weekend and reaction as well in this week's print edition of the Clare Champion. Don't go anywhere, because coming up after the break, we've got camogie and football to talk about, so loads to keep you tuned. Now, you're welcome back to this week's edition of the Clare Champion Sports Chat podcast. As you can see, it's January. It's the time that people trade up their cars, and we've done something similar with our analyst. Sorry about that, Fergie. But we've got Rory Hickey into studio as we talk football now as well. Loads to get through from the weekend, both under 20 senior and indeed the ladies back in Dunbeg as well. But we'll start up in Mullingar, where Clare went down to Westmeath in something of a poetic reversal from last year. A 1-point win for Clare in the championship up there last year, but this time it was the other side of the result they came out on. We were expecting it to be quite a tight game, lads. I mean, it was a game that probably, if you were looking through your three away fixtures, Cavan, Roscommon and Westmeath, you'd be saying, right, let's target this one. It's our first one, come down the road with a point or two and have 4 home games. And probably deflating, always a 1-point loss, Rory. And I guess from here on out, we're looking now at picking up points, aren't we?
And Happy New Year to everyone. And I hate to start with a negative note, but my God, did Clare deserve a draw at the weekend. I was listening to Joe there on the radio. I was back in Doonbeg watching the ladies, and just the feeling, I spoke to a few lads afterwards, was that, 6-7 minutes into additional time, the referee was at his discretion. The game was a draw, and he could have let the two teams off with a draw. Now, that's what I've heard afterwards, and it seems to be like the GA's absolute refusal to enter into taking the timekeeping out of the referee's hands. Now, Niall Cullen was refereeing the game, and he felt at the time when he blew the whistle up that was the end of the game. Westmeath were a point ahead. He refereed right to the end, down to his 2 watches, and fair play to him, and by all accounts, he had a good game. But
press the pause button on that for a second. We'll come back to that, but let's just stick with the on-field thing, Peter, because listening to Colin Collins after the game, and as we know from dealing with Colin over the years, we're not going to go through the nitty-gritty of the game, by the way. You get all that in the paper as well as the chat with Colin. But one thing, he's always as honest. He's as honest as in defeat as he is in victory. And you could see he was annoyed. I mean, the same old failings that we've been talking about since, we've praised Clare football, but we have to look at the failings at times as well. And, silly shot selection, 5 very poor wides in the first half, carrying the ball into traffic, and this tendency that it was interesting to watch the Westmeath half forward line and the Clare half back line in terms of the attack. The Westmeath half forward line were hitting that line with pace, coming off the shoulder, creating an overlap, and too many times you had Clare defenders kind of looking over the shoulder on the back foot. Oh God, the space here, I have to cover here. And the 2 goals were kind of similar in that sense. That carbon copy were very weak and soft, I felt, through the centre, but then turn around when Clare were attacking. It's lateral, it's slow, it was lethargic, it was pedestrian. We didn't get our kickers into space, like David Tuberty kicking 8 points, I think 6 of those or 7 of those from frees. That's just not good enough anymore if we're going to go to the next level.
That's it. And I, like Rory, I was back in Dunbeg at the ladies game, but I suppose the feedback that I got from the game is that, particularly in the first half, Clare, you wouldn't have thought Clare were a Division 2 team. That they were starting their 4th season in Division 2, and we've given them, as you said, loads of praise for that, and deservedly so. But I suppose Westmeath obviously came up from Division 3 and would have, at the back of their minds, have the championship game in mind as well.
Can you simply put that down to big men gone from the middle, Jamie Malone gone, Gary Brown? Is it as simple as that to say that look, we're missing these guys, it's going to take us time to adjust? Kieran Russell's playing never played centre field really, only maybe a little bit for his club. He's been thrown in there centre field, trying to link up with Cathal O'Connor, and maybe it's going to take time for those two to forge an alliance there in the middle.
That's all well and good to say, Rory, right? But Clare had enough possession in the second half in particular to have held on to win that game. Like, there was one situation where I think it was the second Westmeath point of the second half, where Kieran Russell goes down the left wing, tries a shot that just simply wasn't on off his left, drops a shot into the keeper's hands, and 90 seconds later Westmeath go down and they tack on another point. So like, if you're priding yourself on this patient build up, and like Collins always talks about the importance of holding on to the ball, like that is the sickening thing, that you've kicked the ball away, you've given it back to the guys that are going to hurt you. And it's a very, very simple fix, but yet to keep doing it at that level isn't good enough.
It's like, it's an unforgiving environment. You know, it's a very, as we know, it's a very high level Division 2, and there just is no time to bed in. You know, you have to, it's a cliche, but you have to hit the ground running if Clare are going to stay in Division 2. Now look, they were only beaten by a point, and as you said, Derek, you know, maybe the game could have been, or as you said, Rory, maybe the game could have been blown up. But look, that's always looking at it from a Clare point of view. I suppose we'd look at it from the opposite point of view if we're from Westmeath. But listen, they're going to have to take whatever they can from the game last weekend. Next weekend is massive now. You know, we know every game is massive, but particularly home games.
Yeah, but what I'm expecting is a response, because in fairness now, you know, it may seem a little bit doom and gloom here, right?
Yes.
But they did well to fight back into the game, and in fairness to Dermot Coughlin, who had spent 10 minutes in the bin as well at a crucial time just before the break, got the black card, missed the first 10 minutes of the second half, and Westmeath knocked over, I think, 2 or 3 points while he was off. But he kicked the leveller, and you thought, brilliant. You know, we've come out of a din here, coming down the road at a point, all well and good. So there are positives, but it was just the slow pedestrian nature at times, like that you expected more intensity. Okay, Jamie's gone, okay, Gary's gone, and we look soft through the centre, and that is where the problem was.
Out of interest, Eric, what happened with the kick out after the equaliser? Because that, to my mind, is the most important thing of all, that you do whatever you have to do, even if you have to take a black card. Do what you have to do. Like Dublin did a couple of years ago against Mayo. Like, did Westmeath kind of take a rapid kick out, or what happened?
Yeah, it was taken quick, and then there was a big high looter of a ball played into the verge of the square, and Heston won it inside over Kevin Harnett. Now Kevin held him very well throughout the day. Heston was good from frees, but just it was he gathered it, and I think it was almost going to be a mark, and Kevin just kind of kept holding him to maybe almost shield the ball from the ref.
Yeah.
You know, stop him realising that the mark had been made almost, and then the free was given. I don't think we could argue with the free, but it was that classic thing of just maybe switching off at the wrong time, or you know, it was all a bit helter-skelter really. But I think we need a response now. Like, Kildare had a big win under Jack O'Connor's first reign. Daniel Flynn was back, kicked 1-3 up in Newbridge. We finally have them down out of Newbridge. Yeah. They're in our backyard now, so I think it's time to put down a bit of a marker, because we need points now from here on in.
It just goes to show the thin and slim lines there.
Yeah.
They could have, we could have been talking totally different here and totally upbeat if they'd have come away with a point, you know, and we'd be looking to maybe win a game this weekend. But a defeat in such a manner, you know, it'd be hard to pick them lads up in a week to go at it again, and like, points are very, very, very hard to come by in this division.
We mentioned in the report as well, like, and I know last year was a similar trend, and it's worrying. Like, David Tuberty got the point after Gavin Cooney's goal. Another 27 minutes passed before we got a score again. Like, in Division 2, you're going to be punished for that kind of stuff.
You've got to keep that scoreboard ticking over all the time, you know, especially against some bigger teams.
I think as well that if you're Jack O'Connor or any opposing management team getting ready for Clare, 12 months ago, you know, maybe of the 3 players that Kildare will be looking at, they'd say, well, okay, we've got to think about Gary Brennan, we've got to think about Jamie Malone, and probably David Tuberty, you know. And I know there's no point in us living in the past. The 2 boys are gone, but other lads need to step up, you know. And I'm sure they're doing their best, and I know they are doing their best, but like, we need to see that step up this weekend. Yeah,
big response needed, no doubt. Rory, we got you in for a specific reason, not just because of your lovely hair, but because I suppose it was the first weekend of the new rules in Gaelic football, and the mark that was given above in Mullingar on Sunday would have you tearing what little bit of hair I've left out. Because this advanced mark was brought in to encourage kicking and catching, the overhead catch, all that nonsense. Like, the mark that came for Westmeath, your man slid out along the ground to catch the ball below his ankles. Now, if that skill entitles you to a free shot of goal, I don't know where we're going. trying to AFL Gaelic football. Like it's he missed it, thankfully, from a Clare perspective. Like, but you'd be saying to yourself to be a sickener if that was the crucial score in the game. Like, I just don't get it. It was completely needless tinkering.
The jury is really out in this one. I was sitting down Sunday night watching a bit of League Sunday, and they showed a mark that Michael Murphy took in the Donegal game, and there was no sliding around along the ground, but he had left his marker. He was 10 yards ahead of him, and he caught it like he was catching a ball out his back garden. Stood up, whacked it over the bar. Now, I don't think that sort of mark is kind of the sentiment that this rule was brought in for. It was to try and encourage, first of all, long kicking and high fielding. Now, teams have adapted a bit. They have their players, they have their good passers outside the 45, and they're waiting and they're soloing and waiting for a guy to get into a bit of space and just nonchalantly knock it 20 yards into his path. Jury's out for me. I was a big fan of the mark from the kick out. Encourages long kicks out, more contests in the air, and a better spectacle to watch. But I don't know if still out for me. I don't know if this advanced mark is the way to go. But what happens, right? I was discussing this now with a couple of refereeing friends of mine at the weekend, one of these ex-referee WhatsApp groups, the retired referees WhatsApp group. And what happens if Heslin at the weekend had caught a ball inside in the square, in we'll say the large square, if you're fouling there, it's a penalty, catches the ball in there, can he be challenged straight away? There's a lot of, like,
just 15 seconds is nonsense.
Yeah, so then 15 seconds, right? So he's 15 seconds to kick it, but if he catches inside in that square, in theory, I don't think you can go near him for 4 steps. But then there was a clarification 2 days before the National League that if he does take it aside the square, you can tackle him. And he hasn't indicated for a mark. There was another one in that game in Donegal where the player in the corner, I think it was a Donegal player, took a mark. Barry Cassidy looked him down the corner. He went for his mark, used his signal, and then looked around and decided to play on. Went by the player and kicked it over the bar. But he had claimed his mark. So by rule then, right, and by definition, he should have stood up, used his 15 seconds to kick it over the bar. But he played on. So did he foul the ball then when he played on? There was no whistle from the referee. The score was allowed. So there's a lot of grey areas there at the minute.
It was interesting listening to some of the Radio 1 analysis on the way home on Sunday. I think it was Michael Meehan was on, and he said that he had seen this situation. I can't remember if he named names or not now, but he said there was a situation where a mark was caught,
yes,
but that the defender was clearly holding the free hand to stop the arm going up to make the motion. And that the very next one that was claimed then, whoever it was, I think it was actually the game in Kildare that was there, the 2 hands were put up. So, like, you're going to have cute cornerbacks that'll catch the elbow, and, if you caught your mark,
exactly,
there's no mark being claimed here, ref, he's overcarrying, and off you go.
But
so
another point, is it through to championship this year?
Yeah.
So
at club level, like, Peter, this is going to be bananas, isn't it?
How are we going to manage that?
Go back to Cross or Dunaha or bed Saturday evening in the Gary or Division 3 of the league, like, and try and implement all this stuff. Like,
was it 20 metres? Was he outside the 45?
It's nonsense.
Did he claim?
Yeah, it's putting massive pressure on.
And it's Congress
referees
now that has to change this now. So we're looking at this for the championship. You're talking about provincial finals, quarterfinals, semi-finals could be decided by a referee thinking it was 20 metres and clearly it was 7 or 8. So jury's definitely out for me,
like,
anyway, lads.
Club league game, a ref is lucky to have maybe 2 umpires, probably no linesman.
Lucky to have a ref.
Lucky to have a ref, and now they've got to kind of factor all this in as well. This thing of trying to make it a more direct game. I mean, the people that came up with this are just living in some kind of, I don't know, 1970s idyllic kind of.
I do know for a fact that they don't consult the referees. I've asked around, and in my own time, they put some guys together and they come up with new rules to try and advance Gaelic football and make it a better spectacle. But they don't consult the referees. I don't know how many players or whatever they discuss. But that's what they've come up with. God, I think we're stuck with it.
I think I like the black card in that the previous black card rule where you could be replaced, you could nearly hold a fella back or two.
You weren't really being punished.
But going down now to the 14 obviously makes a bit of a difference, and we spoke about the timekeeping. They have to take that out of the referee's hands. We have to move on as time is against us. We've other games to talk about. Peter, quickly, firstly, the under-20 footballers beaten in the Liam O'Connor Cup final on Saturday. Was it a worrying result with championship so far away, or was it a result that is now maybe out of the system ahead of championship being so close?
It wasn't a worrying result, but it was definitely a worrying performance. First half, look, you win or lose a game as long as you play near enough to your maximum. You've a good bit to kind of work off. But the first half was disappointing. Clare looked defensively fairly slack, awfully lot sharper in their movement. The ball stuck, their kicking was a lot better. Clare did improve a bit in the second half, but if you concede 4 goals in the first half, they did get it back to within a couple of points, in the second half. But if you concede 4 goals, you're constantly trying to make up lost ground and you can't afford to make one more mistake. I do think this group have the makings of a good team. You can go one way or the other. Either do it. They had beaten awfully well previously. I think 113 to 6 points. So they'll presumably have learned a lot from that game. Kick out retention early in the game was poor as well. Whether it was down to the movement outside, we can look at keepers and think, well, blame the keeper for the kick out, but sometimes the actual kick is okay, but maybe the movement outside isn't what was planned or envisaged. There's a lot to work on, but they have Waterford at home in Milltown, and you think that this should be. I know they'll be well prepared for that. Hopefully, get over that, and then have a good crack at Cork in Milltown as well.
Absolutely, Rory Dunbeg, you were there for the ladies. Disappointing start.
Disappointed start. Spoke to the manager afterwards, James. Good chat with him. We bought a busload of young ones from Marogue, and big shout out to Orla Devitt, our player from Marogue. She did very well on the day, and she came out to meet us afterwards. I think with 10 or 20 ladies back there. But yeah, a disappointing start. But as James said, they have Monaghan away now next week, but they're playing senior teams. Yeah. They have 3 senior teams to play. So they played Armagh, took a bit of a tonk in there now. They have to go to Monaghan, and they've Tyrone, I think, is their next game. And they're playing 3 senior teams. So as James said, look, a lot of debutants playing. Bit of a learning curve from, but it's hard to be playing senior teams when you were playing at intermediate level yourself. But yeah, some encouraging signs. They conceded 2 early goals, but they came back into the game. Niamh O'Dea, when she was closer to the goal, was more effective. If they could just come up with some strategy of keeping her right in front of the goal, she was starved the ball a little bit. She'd come out a little bit further, but there's definitely potential there. But they have a tough league campaign ahead of them.
Yeah, I guess it's all about building experience, Peter. Finally, championship is the be all and end all for this particular group anyway.
Yeah, look, they will be very competitive come championship. Between now and then, they just want to, compete as much as they can. There's a few things at the weekend. Again, a bit like the under-20s, defensively a bit, they were just a bit caught out. Armagh's movement was good. When Armagh ran at him, they had an overlap, they had a player off the shoulder, and they often had the option of the early ball as well into space.
And physically they were a bigger team, Armagh. Yeah.
Definitely.
But a lady of the Mallons, I can't remember her first name, she's playing full forward, she's a fine footballer.
Yeah, Kelly Mallon, she was very, very good. And just, you could see that they've spent a lot of time in the gym as well. They were well conditioned, well able to win ball and hold on to it as well. So look, a big eye opener for Clare. There's just no point in saying otherwise. And hopefully now this weekend, against Monaghan, up in Monaghan Saturday evening, a bit like the male footballers, they need to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, lads, we have to give mention to Scariff-Ogonnelloe. Yes. Who saw their All-Ireland campaign come to an end at the semi-final stage. It's very hard for them, I suppose, at this stage to maybe take the plaudits for what they've done, because you're obviously gutted after a defeat, and even more so when it's only 3 points. And again, we talk about a referee. Maybe if the game had gone on another minute or two after Marion Rogers' goal, it could have been a different result. But I mean, huge strides made, historic strides made, and you'd be hoping that maybe even the county team can start to build on what Scariff-Ogonnelloe have done. Oh yeah, hats off to them. And they made the breakthrough this year. And look how far they've gone and lost out to a very, very experienced Slaughtneil team. So hats off to them, and that gives encouragement to other teams, other camogie teams in Clare. They've seen Scariff-Ogonnelloe go at it now and see how far they can go. So that'll give encouragement to everyone. But fierce organised team. Scariff-Ogonnelloe, I saw them here in the final here in Clare. They were well drilled and a well fit organised team, and they'll be hard to defeat next year. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. They have done enormous good for their communities. Do you know what they have done for young camogie players in East Clare, from obviously Scariff-Ogonnelloe, Killaloe. It's been massive, and they have a county championship medal. Like if they'd never come out of Munster, it would have been a great year to have a senior championship medal in their pocket. First championship, then to go on and win Munster was unbelievable. And look, they competed exceptionally well against a great team. This is one of the best camogie teams
you've ever seen.
Ever, So we can't but admire them, and they'll be around for a long time. And I think as well they'll raise the bar for other clubs, because other clubs in Clare will think, geez, if we're going to compete in Clare, we have to raise our own bar. So I think they've done enormous good, not just for themselves but for Clare Camogie.
Yeah, absolutely, and a dinner dance to look forward to as well, which is always good. And before we go, we have to give a special mention to.
We go to the dinner dance. No.
Yeah,
Invites, no?
No, I wouldn't even let him to the afters. Huge congratulations as well, I think, has to be given to Scariff Bay Community Radio for the broadcast they put together from Dunamore Ashbourne on Sunday. A fantastic job, not just the match itself, but the pre-match stuff as well with all the supporters, and Leo and all the crew up there deserve huge credit for that. So lads, well done on that one. It's where we have to leave you on the Champion Sports Chat podcast for this week. Loads more in the paper, including a build-up to Clare's Camogie League campaign, which starts this weekend against Offaly. We've got an interview with the manager, the captain, and the new coach, as well as one of the up-and-coming stars. That's all available Thursday morning in your paper. We're back again next week. We'll talk to you then.